Hello and welcome to From the Be All End, the Burnley podcast. This is a debrief for Norwich City 1, Burnley 2, and I think it's fair to say that at half-time we weren't perhaps expecting the Clarets to grab a three-pointer from their trip to Norfolk, but goals from Zian Flemming, an absolute worldie. Perhaps evidence that if you do buy a ticket, then you might win a raffle. And then Josh Brownhill, giving the Clarets a 2-1 win at Carrow Road after falling behind after just 63 seconds. I'm Andrew Greaves, alongside me Chris Borden, Justin Connolly and Paul Woodhouse to pick the bones from what I think is probably very much a game of two halves. Absolutely dreadful first half. Let's not beat about the bush. Clarets not doing the simple things that you would expect a football team at this level to do. And then the second half, much better. But yeah, Chris, let's start with you. I think it's fair to say that our WhatsApp group at half-time was not expecting us to get 3 points, given how, let's be really honest, how shite we were in that first half.
It was just, I would say, my toys had gone out of the pram at half-time, and then, let's say, come an hour or so later, I'm like running around like a loon ball punching the air, and I just don't understand how it happened, where it came from. It was rotten, wasn't it? That's so from the first minute where, an absolute basic free header, best defence in English football has given up the poorest goal you'll concede all season, and looked an absolute bag of nerves after that. Then you lose Steve. Again, it wasn't the first time he'd given the ball away with a poor pass, and I felt me groin there, and it sounds like he'll be all right next week, but. It was just absolutely infuriating watching professional footballers who were unable to find simple passes, do the simple thing, get the weight of the pass right, get the angle of the pass right. And it's all so laborious and just desperate for tempo. And it didn't really change until sort of the hour mark. And to give Parker his due, he made the changes. And, Norwich have failed to close down Flemming, and he scores an absolute thunder bastard, which is great. And the winner has come from what we haven't done often enough: get bodies in the box. There's 3 or 4 in the box when the ball comes in from Hannibal, and Anthony's had a look at it, Flemming's had a look at it, and Brownhill's taking control. And for all the grief that Brownhill takes, and I agree, an open play doesn't contribute an awful lot, but he scores goals. And it's like the age-old conundrum with some of these strikers that do in the rounds. The likes of Jordan Rhodes down the road and things like, what else do they do with it? Well, they score goals. He's not a centre forward, obviously, but he is our goal threat at the moment. I don't see how you can leave him out, to be brutally honest. But it's Flemming's contributed, Hannibal's contributed, Laurent's contributed when they've come on. I mean, if you start those next time out, do they contribute as starters? It's been a pattern where they haven't really delivered after good cameos, and it showed again though that the depth of the squad is there, and again we're sort of depending almost on individual brilliance to bail us out, really, because the team, for it isn't really functioning.
Yeah, and Justin, I mean, just before Estev went off after putting the ball out of play for the second or third time, the commentator was just going, that's loose from Estev, it's gone straight out of play. That's loose from Estev, it's gone straight out of play. I mean, he's the kind of guy you bet the ranch on in terms of like not letting you down. But I mean, it looked like in that first half, they'd all been on a Christmas do last night, like we'd perhaps been out on Thursday, hence no podcast, and they were all still pissed, isn't it? I mean, it's like Chris said, it's the simple stuff of, can you play a pass to a person in a Burnley shirt? Can you play a pass that is weighted right for somebody to get behind? I mean, it was pretty abysmal that first half, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
It was absolutely awful. I mean, it's as bad as we've been this season, isn't it? And to be fair, I mean, as much as you enjoy like a late comeback and a 3 points against the odds, you can't paper over the cracks of that first half performance. I actually thought it was pretty much, well, it was kind of what we've been doing all season since those first two games. Aimless, pointless, just passing it around. The difference this time was, I think we were getting pressed a little bit more, and they were actually trying to win the game. They weren't doing that thing that other teams have done where they let us have the ball and try and, so I think we didn't cope with that very well. And like you say, under a little bit of pressure, they found it very difficult to find a player in a Burnley shirt. And then, I mean, he made the changes, didn't he? Which sort of, we seem to become a little bit more positive at that point. But I thought we were pretty lucky actually with that goal. I know it's a magnificent finish, but what ridiculous defending! If I was a Norwich fan, I'd be furious about that. They weren't even watching, were they? When he knocked it forward and Flemming took it on a little bit. I mean, if you're not closing that down, it's very difficult to see how they've got such a brilliant record at home if that's the level that they're at. And then that goal changes the game, doesn't it? We become a little bit more positive. I was frightened when that happened that we might just sort of sit back and settle for a point. But like Chris says, we started getting more bodies in the box. And that's what can happen if you switch on the sort of more positive mindset. And, you said it, about buying a ticket, you might win the raffle. Well, that's what we did, isn't it? We bought the tickets and things started to happen. And if we don't learn from that going forward, and we see more of what we saw in the first half, I can't see us maintaining this run. But got to be pleased with those 3 points, haven't you? Last year we were desperate for 3 points from anywhere. This year it's kind of we seem to be able to get them without trying that hard.
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, a lot of people, criticise me for saying, look, it's not as bad as we think it is. But, I mean, that first half was pretty wretched. But it is one of those, isn't it, that kind of... I think this division is probably between us, Leeds United and Sheffield United in terms of the quality outside of that top three isn't really there. I'm not even sure we've got the quality, but we've got a bit of consistency. But it's kind of, I think we were saying in the WhatsApp group, if it weren't for a worldie, we wouldn't have ever got on level terms today, would we? It was really kind of, following that same pattern of pass for passing's sake, and we weren't even good at that in the first 60 minutes or so. But, we've got another 3 points, haven't we? So are we happy? Are we kind of papering over cracks? Are we kind of going, you know what? This is what teams do when they want to get out of this division. They win when they're not playing that well. They pick them moments. They get them goals. What's your view on that?
I think you've answered all your own questions there, but I think it was a horrible advertisement for the Championship. I think I don't know, it just feels so far away from what the Premier League is and moving further away. We've spoken about it before, but that was I think it's arguably the worst half of football I've seen in about 4 years.
I'd agree.
And we've seen some absolute shockers. And there was, I mean, like you say, we were playing teammates splitting balls, hospital balls, falling over balls, and they weren't that good. They just got into us, and we've struggled with that all year. If sides get up and into us, Preston did it, Blackburn did it to a degree, or whatever, then we struggle, and they caught us early, and we just couldn't come to terms. It wasn't as if they were like all over us, but to your point, we actually rolled our sleeves up, dug in, Parker earned his money, and we really did fight to win, and I think that's the positive primarily out of today. That yes, they dug in. They could have just they looked like they'd given up, never played football with each other before first half, but they managed to do something. But yeah, you can't be throwing worldies out of the pulling those out of your back pocket every single week, can you? But if you are going to turn seasons around, and if you are going to see momentum, and you are going to be somewhere near towards the end of the season, you have to do something like that today. But it just seems like we're now seeing this pattern, aren't we? Where we'll have this little blip of something approaching what we consider to be form, and then we'll fall back into these two dreary board draws. And this today was as horrible as anything. I don't know what it says as to which direction we're going next, but maybe I mean, you can only take a positive and confidence from it, can't you? Which going into the Christmas period should be at least one thumb up, but bloody hell. We've got to play infinitely better than this, because obviously Sheffield United are going to pull his pants down.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, would you accept as a Burnley fan that actually, you know what, sometimes the performances are going to be wretched. We're sometimes going to rescue ourselves in the last 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes and get promoted? Or would you prefer that kind of, I've watched a lot of Championship games this season because of the new Sky deal. Watched Leeds United at Preston yesterday, and that was one of those games where I think both teams were really trying to win a game of football. Not quite sure we could say that this season very often. What's your priority? Is it look, you grind out results, it ain't pretty, it's Parker ball as everyone talks about, or is it, Vincent Kompany Championship season entertainers, smashing teams, great goals, etc.? What would you settle for come April, May time?
Well, wins. I don't give a monkey's how they come, to be honest. I mean, I say without, I don't want to reference. I say Sean Dyche. I get a bit of stick for referencing Sean.
Here he is, bingo.
If you look at the 15-16 title winning season, and you can think of so many games where that we've been passed off the pitch, we've been the inferior side. I remember going to Bristol City quite early on when they were close to signing Andre Gray, and Bristol City hammered us. I think Ben Mee pop up with a couple of goals from corners or something like that, and Steve Cotterill came into the press room afterwards and, excuse my French, came right up to me and went, "Fucking hell, you're a lucky cunts today, weren't you?" And I said, "Well, I suppose they were." But there's so many occasions. Like, remember being at Bolton and being a goal down, and just Andre Gray turning it round, and it was pretty woeful stuff on occasion, and they found a way, and that was the sort of buzz phrase of the season. Burnley will find a way, and this might be what Scott Parker's Burnley do, that they just manage to get over the line by hook or by crook. Let's say whether it's individual brilliance from a Flemming or something like that, or a midfield talisman like Brownhill, who again for his faults he's chipping in where nobody else is. It's an absolute hodgepodge. So in this modern game where we're so reliant on stats and figures and this, so often that it's the feel, isn't it? That sort of, what's your feel? And we're watching these games and the feel isn't great. You don't feel like we're going to run over teams and dominate and football them off the pitch, and they're eking out results. They've lost 2 out of 21 league games, which again is pretty staggering. In reference of Burnley's recent Championship form, which is absolutely magnificent. Going back sort of 10 years or so, we're the best away side in the league on points, and we're unbeaten at home. Which this should be painting a positive story, but again the feel isn't quite right.
Yeah.
It's how do you? There's a lot of sort of things going on behind the scenes that are sort of like a tipping point with some fans. That that this thing with Tresor, he's supposedly fit, he's training. Well, where the hell is he? he's a character. It could be like an Olise with Reading or something like that, or an Eze at QPR at this level. It could be a difference maker when we need a difference maker. Now, if there's a contractual thing that he ain't playing because we have to pay more money or whatever it is, let's just be transparent with the situation. I think Alan Pace the other night was suggesting that he don't think he'll go in January. Well, if he's fit and not playing, why the bloody hell not? He's either contributing or he needs to be out the door. It's just and so we've got this situation where Redmond came back for a while and disappeared, and Benson's been he's had this YouTube videos, but he's no nearer the squad. We've had sort of Foster sort of intimating he was ready, and then he's nowhere near, and it's all very Ramsey's been on the grass, as the saying goes, for how long? Weeks. Well, we've got a bench packed with like 3-4 centre halves and a young untried left back, and it's we keep saying wait for these players, but the longer the wait goes, the less of an impact and a contribution they're going to make. And if results start to tip a little, and there's this sort of upset, behind the scenes, it's on a bit of a knife edge really at the moment. But it's just bizarre when you look at the actual fact of the matter that we're point off Leeds. Slightly more adrift of Sheffield United, but 2 defeats in 21 should be something to celebrate. But it doesn't quite feel that way at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, Justin, let's unpack a couple of them things that Chris has talked about. I mean, fuck it. Let's talk about Mike Tresor. I mean, the chairman at the fans forum at Burnley College the other night. What I would say is absolutely kind of. I don't think Alan Pace ever wanted to answer a question about Mike Tresor, but they ran out of questions because not enough people turned up, etc., etc. And what I would say is a good friend of mine, Tom Wilson, asked the question of what's going on with Mike Tresor, and Alan Pace went, "This is why we don't go rogue." But then, but was then very candid, wasn't he? Let's be honest. I mean, we can criticise Alan Pace, and we have done, but he was very candid in terms of he's fully fit. I'd like him to play. I'm not sure if he will play, but I don't see him going anywhere. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. That's a fucking clusterfuck, isn't it? Let's be honest. If there is something stopping him from playing, whether that is him saying, and the club put out pictures, and I am one of those absolute geeks who looks at every single training picture to see if I can find Mike Tresor, and there was one this week of him looking really happy in training, and he's done the modelling of the new blackout, T-shirt shite and all that shite they're doing, but let's be honest. If he's refusing to play, or there is a reason that he is putting in front of him not playing at that amount of money, at that amount of wages, it's an absolute clusterfuck, isn't it?
Well, you said it. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did pay a lot of money for him, and we all expected him to go, didn't we, before the start of the season? I have to say, having seen him play last season, I'm not desperate for him to make a comeback because I don't think he did anything when he was on the pitch for us, in the Premier League. Those signs weren't particularly promising. But again, I'd say I think Chris is right. I think it's the lack of transparency about what's going on with everything. We noticed this last year, didn't we? And they just started not saying anything about the injured players and just fudging it and refusing to give any detail about who was doing what and where. I'm presuming that they believe there's some kind of strategic advantage either in the market or in the football side of things to doing that, to keeping everything quiet. Maybe there's an element of surprise when Tresor's in the starting lineup next week and the opposition haven't planned for it, or I don't know. But it is ridiculous, It is ridiculous that they don't tell us what's going on. It is ridiculous that because it's counterproductive, isn't it? Well, all that happens is in the information vacuum, speculation develops. We've seen it happen before. And and again, Chris is right about it's on a bit of a knife edge when you've got this undercurrent of dissatisfaction with the style of play, with the performances. it doesn't take much to tip things in the wrong direction. And all this kind of speculation and this lack of information that the club put out only makes that situation worse. I think it gives more weight to the side that's sort of being more critical of what goes on at the club. And I mean, none of what Pace says there makes any sense, does it? There's nothing wrong with him. I don't know if he's going to play, but he's not going to leave. I mean, not all of those things can be true, can they? Just doesn't make any sense for that to be the case. What they're going to do, just sit him there? I mean, like you say, if there's some sort of contractual thing where we'd have to pay him, if he's got a performance, appearance bonuses or whatever it is they do. But should we really be saving money on that sort of stuff? Is that where we are? We offered him the contract, we gave him the terms, and he should be earning that money on the pitch. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, and Woody, I mean, just makes a really fair point there. That kind of, if me or you went to work and didn't perform,
which has been
we'd
known.
expect to get. Yeah. It's been known, of course it has. We've discussed that about you so many times in private, if not in the podcast. You guys who deal in all that SEO nonsense that none of the rest of us understand. But if you refusing to do your job, and I'm not, like I say, Pace has perhaps opened a bigger can of worms in terms of we don't know what's going on with Tresor. We believe he was quite ill during the summer, having picked up something whilst on not in the squad. So is there an issue there? But for Alan Pace to say he's fit, and Scott Parker said a couple of weeks ago he's available, or we're taking it week by week to see when he will be available. The pictures suggest that he's enjoying training. The club have got him to do marketing stuff, which, let's be honest, neither of us two would do unless we really had to. It does feel like that kind of, I don't know, almost I don't know, I don't even know the word to describe it. It's like us as fans this season just, we're expected to accept certain things are what they are. And we have done that to a certain extent in terms of players who left and Scott Parker trying to pull a team together in the last day of the transfer window. But this feels like one of those things that you don't see at every club, and somebody somewhere is mismanaging this, isn't it?
It's one of those things, isn't it? It's turned into this great unknown quantity, this unknown entity, and there is nothing to suggest that Mike Tresor has been any good in a Burnley shirt. Nothing, not once, not even 15 seconds. Other than maybe one or two drone shots, and that's it. It's all off the fact that we paid a lot of money for him, and that he hasn't played, and we've been waiting for him to get fit. And on whatever Alan Pace says, he also thinks we're going to make it to qualify for the Champions League at some point. So it's one of those. He could very well be saying what he thinks fans want to say without getting himself in too much trouble with it. I mean, it's obviously Scott Parker's call at the end of the day. But if we go back to the beginning of the season, he was playing everybody who we thought would have been going. So it's not something from his point of view. You would have thought if Scott Parker thought he was fit and raring to go, then you would have thought that he'd be in the squad. And he hasn't. Has he made a bench as yet? Has he made a substitution bench as yet? No, he hasn't. So either he's not fit, or there's something behind the scenes going on, or we're wanting to flog him in January. It's not too difficult to work out, and I can imagine he doesn't really want to be here, does he? So take that as you will, and we'll move on. But I don't like the idea of things. I don't like this idea of certain players maybe throwing the toys out, etc. And we don't know. We have no idea really what's going on. But there's something a little bit off. Maybe this is what it is when you've got, because this is relatively new to us having this size of a squad, isn't it? And having to understand what's going on with regards to that. And I can imagine that out of all of these in this turmoil, one potential grumpy bad apple probably isn't that bad. I can imagine at other clubs there's infinitely more in modern football, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, Chris, we'll move on to some of what else Alan Pace said at the fans forum. But I think like I say, there doesn't appear to be a kind of tactic from the club of not using Mike Tresor. Like I say, he appears on a couple of training pitches every week, and obviously he's modelling this new blackout range that they've got. But let's move on, Chris, to a couple of other things Alan Pace said. Season ticket prices frozen for next year. I think a few people this year were slightly miffed at the I don't know what the word is. It's kind of like some areas of the fan base were perhaps targeted more than others. So the under 18s, I think, and the kind of over 65s. But Alan Pace made a big point of saying, look, we're going to freeze season ticket prices regardless of division. I mean, that, we criticise the increase, the kind of fairly hefty increases in a town like Burnley, knowing that at this stage of the season, that regardless of division, we're going to freeze season ticket prices is a positive step, isn't it? And we've got to almost, we've got to commend the ownership for saying, you know what, yeah, we put a big price increase last year, but for next year, we're freezing prices this year.
Well, people like to know in advance and to budget and to, you can save and this, that and the other. I'll say there are different schemes now. You can pay monthly, etc. So if you know now, sort of, 5, 6, 7 months in advance, sort of thing, it's handy. It's handy, but and I'll say to the credit, it isn't something that the club have to do at this stage, isn't it? They could sort of leave it a couple of months. It's usually sort of March time, isn't it, when we start with the early bird stuff. And that is to their credit, because I say they could certainly milk the Premier League cash cow if it looks like that we're on for a return trip. But so you've got to take the hats off in that department. I say there are areas at the ground I think are ridiculously overpriced, whichever age group they are. I think it's, championship football. And again, with all due respect, when you're playing sides like Portsmouth and Oxford and Plymouth and people like that, I think, some areas you would be paying sort of £50 to watch those games. And I think that's scandalous in this day and age. I think it's the same as the issue at Manchester United, where they're getting concessions, children to pay 66 quid. I mean, it's just another that's one of the things about modern football that makes people they say they've given up, they've had enough, and we'll go and watch whoever it is in the North West Counties League or something like that, and just completely switch off. So it's in times when we've given the board a bit of stick, then a bit of a hat tip to them in that respect.
Yeah, and Justin, I mean, we've whinged about the entertainment value of this season and various other things, but I mean, one of the things that I took from the fans forum, and and everyone who listens to the podcast will know that I've got very little time for ALK and the way they run the club, but there were a couple of bits from Alan Pace in terms of, he does come across as though he at least understands the fan base. I know there was, lots of talk about increasing the capacity and getting into the Champions League and all that bullshit that nobody really believes, but it's kind of, it's really easy for football owners, as we've seen at Fulham and other clubs, to kind of just keep, squeezing those teats on the cash cow, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I mean, when prices are already too high, in my book, you don't get any medals for keeping them the same. If they reduce the prices a little bit and make it a bit more accessible for people, then maybe I would, applaud that. But I think it's already way too expensive. I mean, I've noticed a lot more empty seats this season. I know it's a different division, isn't it? But the attendances are down, and it's. because there's so many more games as well. I think people pick and choose a little bit more, don't they? When you've got some, let's be honest, some really unattractive ties taking place, especially in the depths of winter. You know, that sometimes Turf Moor's not a very hospitable place when it comes to the weather, is it? And then this new deal with Sky, of course, is making a big difference as well. It's that makes it a little bit less attractive to go pay, especially when the prices are so high. But yeah, and all this nonsense about. I mean, why is he saying all this about the Champions League? What does he does he think people are going to go? Oh, brilliant! Yeah, that's something we can look forward to, is it? Or are people going to say, what on earth are you talking about? We're about as far away from the Champions League as playing football on the moon. I mean, I don't know why he's even bringing that into the equation. It's not unnecessary, isn't it? It's just a silly thing to say. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think announcing now that the season ticket prices aren't going to go up could be seen also as a bit reckless business-wise. I mean, maybe they've already made the decision on that and the budget's set, but it seems to me that a lot of things can happen between now and then to make that, something that he might look back on and regret promising from so far out. But, obviously he's got his eyes on the books and I haven't, so we'll have to we'll have to give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But yeah, it's already too expensive. So, I'm not clapping when they say they're not going to put the prices up still further.
Woody, he's such a miserable sausage, isn't he? He's such a miserable sausage, but I 100% agree. But one of the other things that Alan Pace said is that, I think he said this last couple of January windows, don't expect much in the way of, us spending a lot of money. But again, I think today really rams home the point that there is a gaping hole up front for somebody who knows where the goal is. I mean, Chris mentioned, the undroppable Josh Brownhill. He's our top goal scorer. I mean, it's you cannot expect to get promoted without a striker, can you? And whatever Alan Pace says, we're going to have to find a forward who can at least guarantee in the second half of the season 7-8 goals, maybe probably 10, 12, 15 goals to have realistic chance of top two, aren't we?
Yeah, and our goal is to go up. That's the point. Our goal is to get promoted. And then you've got to plan again. And so what are we expecting? Is it another summer of turmoil where we've got to ditch 75% to gain another 150% and then only come down and do it? And is this just going to be repeatable? And this is, the way of Burnley here on in until something snaps? Because like Justin said, the option is not Champions League. That's not where we're going. We're far more likely to be playing, League One than we are Champions League. And it's that planning. And we know that there are holes in this squad, and especially up front. And yes, we're anticipating certain people coming back, but that being on the grass, having not played for 12 months, having not pulled on a shirt for even longer, what's that going to wind up doing? I don't know. Again, it's obviously up to Parker as to what he wants, but we need reinforcements somewhere and added quality, I think, because this side isn't performing. I mean, it barely performs in this league. What's it going to do? What's it going to do in the Premier League, which is where we should be, and it's where we plan on being, I'm presuming.
Yeah, really good point there, Woody. I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's kind of like this squad is barely capable of top 3, top 2 in the Championship. That's going to be a real gaping hole when we get to the Premier League. We're going to leave it there for today's podcast. We'll be back on Thursday. hopefully with a bit of added quality. Simon Evans back from his vacations, I think they call it stateside in Mexico. But we'll be back on. We're recording on Thursday, out on Friday, looking ahead to next weekend's fixture. But thank you very much to Woody, Chris, and Justin for that. And enjoy the start to your week. It's always good when we go into a new week with a Burnley victory, however kind of slightly dodgy it was in terms of a game of two halves. But until Friday when we see you again, enjoy your week and up the Clarets.